these are 5.2 patch notes for monks. I'm just mainly talking about monk. Oh my gosh, it's being so slow. Wow. Okay, I tried this new editing thing, and I don't have an excessive amount of time to do it, like, probably the correct way, so I got caught up, and it took me longer than it should have. Trying to do it fast, and so it's probably just lagging my computer when I try to watch this, so I can't actually see what you're seeing very well. I see it like 1 frame a minute. But anyway, 5.2 monks, they got a bunch of stuff. Actually, I'm just gonna look at something on the monitor. Hold on. I'm sorry if I'm out of sync with what you see on the video. That's just all the patch notes. It's from MMO Champion and Battle.net. I think they posted it. Anyway, monk changes. First thing is they're taking out the 20-yard sap talent, or the 20-yard perilous talent, and they're adding in Ring of Peace, which I guess is like Ring of Frost, and anyone within the area of effect will be silenced and disarmed. It says it lasts for 8 seconds, so I think it's going to last like Solar Beam, where you're just kind of SOL if you're in it. Adds some RBG viability, and if you're running a really stun-heavy comp, like if you're playing Warrior Monk or something, it may be good. Rogue Monk would probably be pretty good because you just bomb and do that on top of it, and Kidney, whatever. But you do give up Leg Sweep, which is your AoE 5-second stun, so I don't know how much you'll see of it, but it is nice that it's definitely going to have RBG things. Next up is Windwalker and Brewmaster get a second trinket. It removes stuns, fears, and roots, and reduces the duration of those effects if they're reapplied by 60%. So, for example, if you, whatever it is, Nimble Brew a Siphoned Fear, Siphoned re-fears you, it's already going to be DR'd, so 4 and then 60% off it's less than a 2-second fear. It's like a 1 point something. It may as well be third DR'd. If you look at a different point, if someone kidneys you and you trinket it, there's no reason to cheap shot after because it's going to be less than like 1.5 seconds or something. Because you're already DR'd from trinketing it. It's just, it matters a little bit if you're in a different one. So if you get thrown, you trinket a stun and get feared afterwards, it's still only going to be 3 seconds, but it's somewhat of a CC. So that's going to be pretty good. It adds some of the survivability needed, and it doesn't look like this thing's rotating like I expected it to. I will figure that out afterwards, or maybe it's just being really slow. Anyway, Chi Wave is getting 100% more damage and healing. No longer costs Chi, which is nice, but has almost double the cooldown. It's 8 now. It's going up by like 7, I think. So it's pretty good change. It actually makes... They slaughtered that ability to the point where even using it on GCD, it really didn't, or on cooldown, didn't really do all that much. So with the new change, it'll actually be possibly worth something as an off heal. Zin's Fear now has a limit of 2. Was 1, so I guess you can put it up twice. And detonates when they go below 35% health, or it's dispelled. That's a really good change because that ability took 4 chi to actually get off for the AoE heal thing. And it's really nice. I don't know if it's going to do that pulsing damage thing I thought it did, or whatever it was. But possibly a good change. And then Chi Burst, which has the cast time, has a 30-second cooldown. Once again, doubled. No longer costs Chi with the other 3. Which is probably pretty good for raids because you throw it at the boss and it heals every melee. But other than that, it's probably not going to be that good for PvP. Deadly Reach, like I already said, has been removed. Path of Blossoms was a useless ability, and maybe rarely, occasionally got a rogue out of stealth if they were really dumb. But generally speaking, it wasn't even worth the keybind. I put it on there because it's fun to make little flowers and draw pictures with it. But other than that, it's nothing. Now the big one. Perilous is now a physical, non-magic root effect. It can no longer be dispelled, grounded, reflect. Probably can still be intervened because it's definitely physical. And its range on base is 20 yards. I don't agree with this at all. Well, not at all. Some people may debate me on this, but I think it being dispellable isn't an issue. It just needed some sort of damage threshold. But some people would say it breaking on damage, they'd rather lose to a good monk who knows how to do their CC than, I don't know. It's just undispellable. It just seems like a damage threshold would have been better as opposed to what it is, because if it breaks, it breaks. If you do it correctly, it doesn't break, and then you get dispelled out. It just seems like a damage threshold would have been a little bit better, in my opinion. But whatever, it's undispellable. It's a 15-second cooldown in combat sap if you can get behind someone. The 20-yard range is nice, but it's not all that effective because getting behind someone with it's rather difficult. So I think it's going to be used mostly as a gouge, but if you see the full sap, you're in trouble because it can't be removed in any way other than damage. Let's see. Touch of Karma and Tiger's List no longer cost chi. That's really nice. Mostly it looks like all of your chi just goes to damage, trying to smooth out like the overall damage rotation. A lot of the utility moves just it was clunky. Like if a warrior popped out by the sword and you wanted to touch Karma and you didn't have whatever it's called, expel harm, you're in trouble because getting behind a warrior when he's going crazy on you is actually really hard. What else? Tiger's List can't be used on someone sprinting. Yeah, it's technically kind of a nerf. Someone sprinting gets rerouted. You could get them out of routes. Yeah, but it's not that big of a deal. It saves kind of like overlapping sprint and Tiger's List. I don't know if they stacked it in some way. That's why they did that, but it's not that big of an issue. Charging Wave got its cooldown cut in half. It's not as long as a stun. It's a range stun. It's a skill shot stun, which is really weird. Good change if you use it. I don't know anyone who does. Dampen Harm can now be used while stunned, and its cooldown will now begin when used, not when the effect ends. That's nice considering how long the buff lasts, but in itself, that ability is so useless. It just, all the stacks go away. It doesn't actually do all that much. I don't see it being that good. Dampen or Diffuse Magic's still just gonna be like better in almost every way, especially with like, God, Ascendance doing 100% armor pen because it's magic damage and Shadow Blades. It's just terrifying. Which I think those need some tuning because without magic resist, it's just sort of like uh-oh. But that's a different video. That's not really that related to monks. Let's see. The healing spec Life Concoog can't be dispelled. That's a huge shield. The 4-piece actually like works. You can't Aura Mastery while silenced, which is good because you could waste Aura Mastery on accident if you were trying to Aura Mastery silence. Healing Spiel will now heal for 50% of their original value. What? I don't know what that does. If they're not picked up, which I guess if they expire, they just heal your raid or something. And Zon will now fixate on the monk's original target, so it locks on as healer, which is nice. I don't know if they're changing how it works for other specs, but it's not that big of a deal. Anyway, the cool one is Brewmaster ult, Storm, Earth, and Fire. You get a 75 for Windwalker. You can summon. This is really confusing, and I don't know. I think this is one of the reasons they left monks almost intentionally bad this season because they have room to mess with some of the damage as well as giving nifty new abilities and making the class fun to play, and so on. They let themselves intentionally be able to change it patch to patch and have some room with the damage so people feel like there's actually stuff to be changed. Anyway, it summons up to 2 elemental duplicates that mirror the damaging ability that the monks uses while they are active. That's kind of like Dancing Rune Weapon. From the post, you can't really see what it does. I could log on, although I'd have to download like 20 gigs worth of WoW. Download the PTR and try it. I'm pretty sure someone will do it. If they don't, I will in the next week or two. But I do have to download like a gigantic file to do it. To test it out. But they do, with one spirit, 60% each. You do 60%, and then the one spirit will do 60%. And if you have 3, it's 40, 40, and 40. So overall, with one out at bare minimum, you do 120% normal damage. Now, the issue with this is a couple things. One, are you I can't talk. Wow, I really hate this. Are you susceptible to twice as much CC because they can control 60% of your damage, or technically half of your damage if it's out, on a separate DR? So if they clone it and then polymorph you and then polymorph it and clone you, are you taking that much more damage? Well, I guess technically that's not it. If you get AoE feared and then it sits roots and things like that, because you can't control it specifically, it's sort of tricky on how it works. If it's something like Dancing Rune Weapon with a health bar, it may be a lot better. So there's definitely things to see how it works. And then with 2 up, it's 40, 40, 40. I don't know why you'd run 2, except to look really cool. But you get 20% damage increase with 1 out, as long as it doesn't like get excessively CC'd and you lose damage because of it. You lose more than the 20% you gained. So it may be tricky to use, but overall, I think it does have a nice damage increasing potential, and it could be intentionally designed to increase raid DPS and not PvP. Because they don't like specifically saying does X in PvP and X in PvE. Because that just makes the game feel a little bit weird, according to them. On top of that, just 20% damage increase with a weird pet thing, with a Brewmaster ult. Or Panda ult if you're Dota 1. Anyway, they're making our current mastery passive at some level. I think it's like 15. Which is the random proccing of your abilities, which is kind of nice. So you're keeping that. So you pretty much keep your current mastery, and then you get level 15, and then you get a new mastery, which increases Tiger's Eye Brew. The stacking on use buff is going to go up with mastery, and then you stack more quicker, technically. But they reduced it a little bit. It's now 1% instead of 2% per stack. Scales off mastery, which is probably going to put it almost exactly the same, but you get 2 stacks, so it's up twice as often, so you burst a little bit harder. And a UI thing. And then the last thing is Elusive Brawler now provides 20% more stagger per mastery. I don't know what that does. I played Brewmaster once. Literally. I had it as an off-spec my entire leveling phase. Went and spec'd it once when I got Blackrock Caverns, and it was some tank who was actually his new character. I think he was leveling up for the first time, whatever. Didn't know how to do whatever the fire boss is, and even trying to explain it just... I remember wiping in there when Kata came out, because it was tricky to tank, and people just had to figure it out, so you'd wipe a couple times figuring it out. It actually was a nice challenge for once. But I spec'd Brewmaster, tanked it, and I had a BOA overgeared healer or whatever from leveling. Do absolutely everything for me. I had no idea what my buttons did, outside of I did damage and taunted the whole threat, and moved it correctly. So that's my only experience with Brewmaster. And then, I guess I still have more time on this BG to talk. I'll go over a couple other things. Rogues get some damage buffs and some nice utility buffs. They're going to be really scary again, I think. I don't know if they're going to be overpowered, but they're definitely going to be a threat. Couple key things that I think are going to be overlooked. The 4-piece increases max energy by 50 as opposed to 10. It doesn't sound like all that much, except when you look at if you pull energy for a Shadow Dance, you get like 2 ambushes out of that. So it's a lot more burst that people don't necessarily seem to think. When most people look at that, like when I originally looked at it, I was like, huh. I wonder if that's going to make a difference, and then talking to Gannick a little bit, it's like, oh, yeah, that's a shit ton of damage. Burst of Speed might actually be worth using now. Apparently it was really weird before. Now, like, sprints you, costs less energy, and gets you out of route, and still sprints you. I think you still have to give up Shadow Step for that, which is sort of a debate on what you want, but whatever. Yeah. There's a couple things with rogues that make them really scary. Go read that. It's on MMO and the 5.2. I might make another video if people actually enjoy this, and if this actually turns out correct, because, hey, I tried a new thing editing. If it doesn't work, blame my computer, not me, please. I promise I could do it right, but I don't have several hours of free time to make sure everything's working correctly. I have other stuff to do during the holidays, so if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm sorry. If it looks weird and in the way, I'm sorry. Let's see. Warrior changes. Shockwave has a 40-second cooldown, was 20. Striking 3 or more targets will reduce its cooldown. I think that's a bad change. Simply because I don't think Shockwave was the issue. Second Wind got nerfed, which also wasn't the issue, which is kind of annoying. Warbringer got buffed apparently, and still does its gigantic stun, and it decreases movement speed. It does hamstring pretty much, it looks like. Yeah. Taste for Blood has been redesigned. I'll quote this one. Has been redesigned. It now causes the warrior to gain 2 stacks of overpower, maximum of 5 stacks, when Mortal Strike deals damage to the target. Or the target dodges, and no longer interacts with Heroic Strike. So what's it do? You just said how you changed it. I'm guessing it's going back to old Taste for Blood, where it's like a 5% damage increase on whatever. Or maybe you gain multiple overpowers and you can turn them off, which would be pretty scary. I don't know if they're still crit every time, but yeah. And all the changes, I'm actually kind of disappointed in the warrior ones. I think it was someone in the comment who actually suggested the one I like the best of defensive stance damage reduction only works with the shield on. I think that would honestly relieve most of the shockwave pressure of being able to overextend and land the crazy shockwaves people see. Where the actual utility of the stun does not feel that overpowered to me. I feel like it's just the ease that they can get it off with being almost immortal. So I'm actually somewhat disappointed in those changes. I would have much rather seen the only nerf to warriors have been defensive stance getting reduced a bit, because I do think they were overextending too far and not being able to be punished enough for it. Just as a heads up, I actually really dislike these. But, you know, maybe they're a little bit different, or there's still the possibility of them being changed. That's just my opinion. Uh, I know Blood Fear got destroyed. I'm not quite sure if they're getting other things to make up for it, because I'll be honest, Warlocks are pretty bad outside of Blood Fear. The only reason you take a Warlock if you fought, like, I don't know, if Monk's changes went through right now and Feral Druids stayed the same as they were, that comp would have so much damage, but they'd be so susceptible